So thank you very much indeed, Seb, for laying out what our investment has achieved so far for our clients and our product. At the beginning, I talked about how we're looking at our product sets for our clients. We talked about recruit, we talked about manage, and we talked about pay. And you've now heard about where we are on recruit, where we are on manage, and where we are on pay. I then talked that the future is about analyze and decide. We've heard already from our colleagues at Pinpoint and Intelli how their products can assist you to analyze and decide. And what's incredibly exciting for us at Cintra is that we're catching up, okay? And we have a product which is, we think, unique in the payroll market, which will enable organizations, individuals in organizations, to analyze and decide in real time to improve your business decision making. I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, Mark and Ed, to talk you through where we are with this product and how we want you to help us with our product development. Thank you. Mark.
It all started with 2 words. Empower managers. I'm going to take you on a journey into the world of product management, from idea through design to realization. What is the problem? How do we validate our learnings, and how does the product benefit you? And I'm going to talk about exploratory research. So before embarking on any developments, we carried out a lot of research to understand what the problem was and whether there was a solution within the market that could do what we were about to embark on. We had a look at our own product set. We spent loads of time trawling through LinkedIn, the likes of YouTube, looking at our competitor websites. We even spoke to customers as well. And what we wanted to do was basically build an application that would empower managers, give managers real-time data. And using the integration that we've got with the groups to the payroll, what our functionality will enable is managers to set up new starters, managers to make contract changes, and managers to input overtime whilst giving payrollers the visibility that they need. And all of this is in real time. So as and when a manager makes a change, goes into the payroll, and then presents the data on the screen. So rewind the clock back to August 2021. Seb approached me and he said, based on your research, what we're going to do is we're going to give you the investments to develop Cintra Groups. So I ended the call, sat back and thought, oh, this is great news. Then I thought to myself, I've got 2 words. What do I do? Where do I start? And there were so many questions going through my head. And there was a sense of panic started to approach me. And I then sat back and carried out a discovery exercise. And what I had to do was to really understand the problem and how to build the product, and also understand what users want from the product as well. So I started putting tiles on this board. And the first one was goal. So I knew what the goal was, the ability to empower managers. The next thing up on the board was objectives. So these are specific outcomes based on the goal. So it's essentially breaking it down into little manageable chunks, which we then basically tackle on an individual basis. And this is the interesting one, the problem. So what is the problem? And this is where I really needed to get into people's heads to understand what was going on. So when you develop a piece of software, you don't just focus on basically one user case. Because the problem you then have is when you develop an application, it's so narrow and so focused on that one user that there may not be any benefit from it. So we spoke to everyone from managers to area managers, to payroll administrators, chief financial controllers, through to CEOs, and also investment property holders, right at the top. And when we approach these people, we ask questions like who, what, where, when, why. So why do they need the product? What sort of information do they need access to? When do they need to access within the period? And what is important to them? One of my favorite questions was, what keeps you awake at night? And it's amazing how many different answers came back off that. Another tile put down was hypothesis. So because we had very limited knowledge at the time, we needed to basically understand answers to specific questions. And this is generally like if-then statements. So if I water my garden, will the grass grow? So answer to that would be true or false. And the last one is validate learning. So based on all the information that we had, what we had to do was we had to analyze that information. So myself and partner in crime, Callum over there, who's a product designer, we spent a lot of time carrying out loads of interviews, pulling together prototypes, having sessions with basically our user group, and we appreciate everyone that was involved, from the likes of cinema chains, retail outlets, car dealerships. There was a whole host of different industries involved with the research. And ultimately what we found out, one of the bits of learning was, you don't trust managers. So what we did was we basically took that away, and what we found out is that the trust is making sure that the data is entered correctly. So we've got validation throughout our products, and also the visibility of what your managers are doing. So if you want to empower them to input overtime or make changes within the system, as payrollers, you want to know what's going on. You want to have basically clear visibility and make sure that they're not putting anything silly in the system. Okay. What we've done is we have built a easy-to-use system. There's no limits on the company size or setup. So with the groups, it is cross-employer, cross-PAYE, cross-payroll. You can have multiple groups, managers can span one or more groups, and employees can be within one or more groups as well. So you can see how many different ways that it can be set up. We've also set up role-based security. So with all the different customers we were speaking to, each of them wanted they had different requirements with regards to what their managers had access to. So some wanted read-only access, whereas others, one of the retail outlets we spoke to, wanted each of their retail shops, they wanted to empower their managers and treat them as mini businesses. So the managers within each of those stores set up their starters, they input the contract changes, and they also input overtime. And that data, once entered by the store, the payrollers then checked it and then processed the payments. And with the read-only access that we've got, so one of the cinema chains that we've got using the product, we've integrated with IntelliHR. So they set up their new starters and make contract changes through IntelliHR. And that data is then automatically sent through to Cintra. We're also integrating with the time and attendance system. So all of the basic hours that have been worked at those cinema chains are imported into the payroll system. What the managers have got is when they log in, so the general managers log in to their cinema, and they can see all their employees, they can see the starters, their leavers, the one-off payments, and everything that's relating to their cinema. And even goes as far as we've set up area managers as well, or regional managers. So those regional managers have then got a holistic view of all the cinemas within their remit. And what we've also done as well is we've increased visibility and efficiency. So a single point of entry, that database goes into the system, and in terms of the visibility, I'm going to show you a few videos in a minute so you can see the process from setting up the group through what the managers can see to what you can see as payroll administrators. Okay, so the first video I'm going to show you is the group administration, and this is how easy it is to set up a group within Cintra Groups. And this role can be given to an individual. They don't need to be a payroll individual. So what you can do is you can set them as group administrator, but hide all the payroll information, so they can literally see the employees' names and associate them with groups. Let's run through this video. So To create a group, what we'll do is click on the Create Group button, and I'm going to create a group called Conference Guests. I'll then click on the Done button, at which point I'll then select the employees I want to be included within my group. We've got a auto set feature, so what this means is when the group has been set up, employees be automatically allocated to groups, so there's no manual intervention needed to set up any new starters in the groups once it's live. You can also filter on, when you're creating a group, by payroll, by cost center. So essentially, you build your group, and then when you're happy, you'll click the Done button, and that is your group created. The next step, once you're happy with the employees, is to allocate your managers. And with regards to your managers, if you've got a big group of people, you may want to have individuals with different levels of access. So if we set up Michael with full access, and if we set up Seb with restricted access to basically a couple of cost centers, what the system will do is it will automatically allocate those managers to their respective employees. So when the managers log in, they can only see the employees that are relevant to them. Okay. And then when you're happy, once you're happy the managers are right, the employees are right, you can then turn the group on, at which point the managers can log in and see the employees that are basically related to them. So quick, easy, a few steps, that's the group setup. And I'm going to show you what the managers see now. So from a manager point of view, what we've done is we've taken basically the Cintra payroll page and use that same functionality for the managers. So the managers can see the total costs, the starters, the leavers, basically the same information as the payroll team, but restricted down to their set of employees. So if we run through this, like I mentioned, you've got the total costs, starters, leavers. All of these tiles are interactive, so the managers can click into each of these. You can also see the variances as well, hovering over all the pills, and all the employees within the system. So if we click into these tiles, it then shows you the information that's related to each of the, so the grids update relating to each of the tiles. Okay. And you can also drill down deeper into the information as well. So you can see the current period starters, current period leavers, and also all the leavers within the payroll. And one of the things we've recently added on the salary allowances is the variance as well. So you can see and easily identify any fluctuations in variance for the likes of salaries and allowances. Managers or users can also click on the employee ID, open up the payslip summary information. And from here, they can field any employee-related pay queries. So removing the need from employees to have to get in touch with the payroll team to ask any questions. The managers can field those questions. They can view the current period, scroll through previous periods. And they can also, depending on security, set up new starters. So we've got the likes of the new starter wizard in here. They can import one-off payments. So one of the things Dan mentioned is we've got the one-off payment wizard. So that's currently hidden at the moment, but we're going to be deploying that in the near future. So managers will be able to import bulk one-off payments and also on a one-by-one basis. Once managers have imported one-off payments, what they can do is they can check to make sure that all the payments have been imported into the system. So we've put basically a few different views in here. We've got a detailed view, by heading view. So if they want to reconcile basically on a heading by heading basis, they can do so. And they can also click into each of these to view the relevant cost centers. So this will vary depending on customer to customer how you set up the cost centers, but you can drill down and pivot and explore the data you've got in the system. And this is a cost center review as well. So analyzing all of your data by cost centers. And within the system, what we've got as well is the ability to basically filter data. So you've got the ability to basically summary by heading, summary by cost center. But using the filters, you can also summarize based on your own criteria. So in this instance, we're filtering by a couple of payment headings. And what that's doing is that's giving basically the manager or the user's totals. So they can, again, reconcile that back to what they're expecting to see within the system. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of the managers. And the last one I want to show you is basically the visibility that you as payroll administrators need. And what we've done is we have built in or integrated the groups with the payroll. So what you'll see on this page is there is a groups column, and what you can do is, there you go. You can see all of the groups that have been allocated to the employees. So you can see there we've got conference guests that have been set up. So you can quickly look through, check everything. Again, everything can be filtered as well. So if you want to look at specific groups, specific regions, you can do so. And also with the one-off payments as well. So all of this information here has been imported at group level. So you can filter, you can see what groups have imported data based on the filter. And then you can have basically a look through, make sure that everything is as you expect. And again, everything, you've got the totals in there. So for the likes of the overtime, you can see the number of hours worked, the cost for those headings that you've selected. Okay. So we've spent basically a lot of time researching and really understanding the problem. And like I've mentioned, in terms of the functionality, there's no limits in terms of the size of the company, because one thing that surprised us is the first customer that went live had 35 employees. So, small customer. And what it enabled their payroll manager to do was to give managers access, and they fielded employee queries. So instead of those employees coming to the payroll team, they went straight to the managers, who then answered the questions on behalf of the payroll team. And that did free up some of the payroll administrators' time. Okay. This is very exciting where we're going. So with the functionality that we've got with groups integrated with the payroll, what we're going to be developing in the coming months is a handoff. So the ability for a manager to submit their functionality or their input. They'll click a button. That will then notify the payroll administrator that the manager has completed their input. Payroll administrator can then check it, make sure everything is okay. And then once we've got that functionality in there, we're then going to build in auto calculation. So as and when a change has been put into the system, whether it be a new starter, a salary change, import of the likes of overtime, your one-off payments, that data will be automatically calculated through the payroll engine, providing the manager with basically their own costs, tax, NI, pensions, and anything that attributes to employees' payments. And you may see on the screen, we've got real-time budgeting. So with auto calculation within the groups, what we're going to be building is the ability for managers to be able to see their actual versus budget. So as soon as they put information in the system, calculate it, they can see on the screen, they can answer questions like, can I afford to pay overtime this weekend? Without having to manipulate Excel spreadsheets. And a lot of the research, again, that I've done is the providers that are out there, the solutions they've got, you've got to enter data into the HR system to then import into the payroll, for a payroller to then calculate that information, to then export it to a budgeting system, at which point the users could then get access to their budget reports. And if there's any mistakes or any changes needed, they've got to go through that whole process again. And the lag in time that it takes to do that whole process, you're often talking 4 to 6 weeks after the actual event has happened. So with us building this directly into the payroll, offering the ability to auto-calc, it then gives the manager the ability to answer the question, can I afford to pay overtime this weekend? They can look at their dashboard, they can see what their on-costs are. So in this example, 40,000. They can then see what their actual is versus their budgets and what they've got remaining. So if I were a manager in this case, I could look at that and go, yeah, I can afford the overtime. So in terms of efficiency, you've gone from everything being after the events to real time and mitigating the risk of overspending. For businesses, payroll is one of the biggest costs. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to basically overspend. You want to be able to react now. Okay. Before I hand over to Ed, I'm just going to recap on the three questions at the start. So what is the problem? So the problem was the ability to empower managers. How do we validate our learnings? So what we did was we listened to you. We really wanted to understand what the problem was, and then what is the benefit to yourselves. So the product that we've developed gives you the ability to devolve responsibility, capture data at source, improve efficiency, reduce errors, and mitigate the risk of overspending through real-time on costs and budgetary capability. And this all started with two words: empower managers.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at PSSG, and my name's Ed. So over the past 15 years, I have worked with lots of different product managers to launch products into the market. And this is the first time I can say we're not just working on improving the status quo, but we're working on changing the way that we work. I'm going to talk a little bit about the big picture of what that change means, how you can become an early adopter, and then I'll finish off by letting you know how you can get your hands on the product yourselves. So, the payroll industry obviously started out entirely paper-based, and then it moved to being entirely computer-based. And then from an outsourcing perspective, the vast, vast majority of organizations use specialist software providers like Cintra. As you all know, it's generally delivered software as a service, and as we've been talking about today, it's now integrated with the full employee lifecycle. So this is where we are today, automated and integrated, with the complexity being handled by a software platform, reducing human error. So how does groups change the game? And to cover what Mark has covered in detail at a high level, it's data entry, capturing data at source, so that we're more efficient and accurate. It's providing total visibility through the groups function, and then wrapping all of that together with real-time budgeting. So no more waiting for 2 weeks after month end has finished to find out where you're tracking against budget. So I recently pitched to a very well-known household brand, and we had a bit of a Q&A discovery session at the beginning. And we discovered that the payroll manager was pulling 6 different spreadsheets from 6 different places, standardizing them, making sure they were accurate, and then putting them into a single spreadsheet and handing them over to the outsourced payroll provider. Then at the end of the month, they're taking that back in another spreadsheet, sitting with their finance manager, going through the spreadsheet and making sure that the reporting is fit for purpose for the leadership team. Both the payroll manager was in the session, so was the finance manager, and both were quite stressed by that process, single points of failure, no automation, lots and lots and lots of responsibility. Cintra, we can improve on that already, of course, and I explained that to them, but Groups transforms that workflow. So if we're transforming this workflow, how does that impact your organization and how does that impact you? Well, it's about going from data to decisions much, much faster. Another example, I was speaking last week to the finance manager of a domiciliary care organization, and he told me that his CEO was asking him, why can I not see data relating to my workforce when I need to see it? So that organization has multiple different subgroups, over 1,000 care workers supporting elderly and vulnerable people throughout the UK. And they're growing very, very quickly. So they're at 1,500 employees now. They'll be at 5,000 within a few years. That's very fast growth, and it takes some monitoring and management to execute that effectively. What the CEO wants is to be able to see in the month how her different regions are tracking against budget so that she can plan for the next month to make sure that she is in budget or spending her budget effectively. She wants to understand how different managers are managing their workforce. Are they being effective and efficient? And if they're not, how can she support them in the month? She also wants to know, what does overtime spend look like as a ratio of overall spend across different regions? And how can we take lessons learned from one region and apply them to another region in real time? What she doesn't want is to find out 2 weeks later what she should have been doing last month. And that's the problem that Groups solves. A few years ago, I spoke to a CEO of a large property company that he founded, and he took it from nothing to $500 million valuation. So I asked him, what do you do every day? Because I have no idea what someone who's capable of doing that actually does with their time. And he told me that he wakes up and he goes to his leadership team, he finds out where the problems are, and he solves them. And again, that's what Groups is doing for your organization. But what does that mean for payroll managers and finance managers? It means that payroll has always been a business-critical operation, and it always will be. We know how stressful it is to ensure that everybody is paid on time. But Groups means that payroll can offer a competitive advantage to the business. So how do you gain access to the competitive advantage before your competitors? Become an early adopter with Cintra. So our trialists have co-created this product with us. They had a need, and they came to us, and we listened, and in response, we created a product. And I'm using the royal we. It was obviously not me, it was Mark and his team. The next stage of this journey is the early adoption phase. So we've taken Groups to a really good place, and now we want to move it on to its full potential. And to do that, we want people to join us as early adopters. And we will give a free period use of the software, followed by a preferential pricing model at the end. And in return, all we want to do is listen to your feedback. So the way to join the early adoption program is to sign up now at cintra.co.uk/groups. We will, once you've registered your interest, we will get in touch and we'll set up a demonstration, and then you can use the product. And there is no commercial obligation at the end of that trial period to continue with the product, but we're confident that many of you will see the value and will do so. So that's how you sign up, and I look forward to talking to lots of you in the early adoption program. So thank you very much. We've